around.
Sure.
So many questions in this area that 5 minutes on the News Network isn't enough time to cover everything. So send your questions into us on Facebook and on YouTube, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. But let me introduce this and preface this, our conversation, really by the story that got us thinking about this issue again most recently. And it was the story that you saw yesterday on our program on CBC News Network coming out of Australia. A 42-year-old man who has been confirmed as masquerading as Canadian superstar Justin Bieber, masquerading online as Justin Bieber and luring children. He has been charged this week with more than 900 charges involving what police say alleged 157 victims so far in at least 3 different countries. So there are online charges, but there are actually rape charges as well as part of this. And this got us thinking again about the whole issue of how to keep kids safe online. But of course, the Bieber connection really took this, we thought, to a new level. And hence, on our program this morning, Constable Blackadar came in to talk about this. The police in Queensland, Australia, they characterize this, just because of the sheer number of charges, as absolutely horrendous. Mm-hmm. I was surprised when we spoke first this morning, you didn't actually flinch too much at the numbers involved here.
Yeah, I mean, we've done investigations. There was another officer in my unit, Detective Constable Sisk, who's done one recently in the last year where, again, hundreds of kids were identified as victims of someone who was luring them and pretending to be
person.
Yeah, exactly, pretending to be somebody else. So it does happen. I mean, for the most off, we hope there's not as many victims involved.
Right.
But you know, for a prolific offender, I mean, it's easy to type on a keyboard and access the internet, right?
The whole world.
It's much easier than, you know, what we used to think of when we were kids as some stranger in a van who was driving around your neighborhood. And so with the digital age, you know, it's about adding contacts and being able to reach out to them and talk to them, and they can offend, you know, 100 times faster than
and
in the real
all
world.
over the places of the world. As I said,
exactly.
So far, we're looking at 3 countries being involved in this, but we don't know if there's any Canadian connection or any potential Canadian victims. You were telling me on the air earlier that so far, to your knowledge, in the Toronto force, no Canadian ties. How would it work that you would be called in? What would be the chain of events and that Toronto or any Canadian force might be notified that there may be Canadian victims?
Well, with their investigation in Australia, it would be the same as what we would do. Is if we found that there was children that needed to be given counseling and a statement taken from them, and you know, education in that regard, those cases would be sent out to the various countries. So we have a national Child Exploitation Coordination Center here in Canada. Those tips would filter in through them, and then they would disseminate them throughout Canada.
Okay, and then you would know if there was a Canadian connection. So far, you haven't been given that information yet.
That's right.
But it still could be forthcoming. We're going to take questions and comments from you. There's so much to the story, and a particular reason why we're talking to Constable Blackadar, because of exactly the kind of work she does, but we're already getting some comments. So let me tell you about Rita Mir Pupo. My kids are not able to go online without supervision and don't have access to games that allow communication. As they get older, we may change those rules, but with supervision and earned trust. So my kids are not able to go online without supervision. That's something that you told me earlier this morning is a key.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, you have to give kids some freedom, right? Yeah. But it has to be with responsibility. So they need to know what the risks are. You can't just give them freedom and not tell them this is how you have to be careful. So you have to educate the kids. I mean, I think it's important to have parental controls on the devices, in that they can't just install any app that they want. You know, you got to make sure you know that
what apps are on their phone.
Exactly. Right. You know what apps are installed. You know how they work. You know how to review them, because the reality, you know, is kids can be sneaky and concerned, right? And they might delete things that are important, right? Like, even if something happens, they might delete it because they're embarrassed or they're worried.
Right.
And then we lose that evidence and we can't investigate it afterwards, right? So, I mean, safety dialogue is
Safe dialogue.
so huge.
So don't allow, you suggested don't let them be online in their bedroom. No need to do it when they're all by themselves, because you never know what's happening, right?
Exactly. I mean, the bathroom for sure. I can tell you that is a place where kids get directed to online.
Bathrooms?
Yeah, because it's private, right?
Okay,
You know, you can go in your bathroom.
parents
You're
won't
supposed to
probably
close
follow
the
you in
door.
there, yeah.
Exactly, as opposed to being in your bedroom where you
Okay.
leave the door open, right? You close the door in the bathroom. So, you know, so
yeah.
if you think if you're a kid and they're taking their phone into the bathroom, absolutely not. You know, and again, you know, if you get home, there's no reason that your child shouldn't be able to sit on the couch next to you
Right.
and text and do their business.
Right. Keep that open communication.
Exactly.
Keep them in your line of sight. Steve Mills was writing to, obviously, any discussion of this in this country brings up the whole story of Amanda Todd. And people watching that, of course, knew she was cyberbullied, revealed herself. You know, some explicit images that went around the world, and she was harassed and bullied, and eventually took her own life. And that case is being heard over in the Netherlands, and is still ongoing. Somebody who's been involved in multiple allegations, multiple situations, of course, according to police allegations and investigation, lots of charges. So, I mean, when we talk about this, it's not something that's just kind of, yeah, well, it's a danger. I mean, there are really, really tremendous stakes here for children and their families, right?
Sure. You know, it's their private body. It's their, you know, when they get lured, so to speak, or they get duped into exposing themselves or sending intimate images. You know, we run that risk, even consensually, sending in intimate images, and then something happens with the breakup, and then someone posting them. You know, there's another level on top of it when they think that they're sending them for one reason, and then it's not really that reason. And once they go out there, the images or the videos, whatever, it's very difficult to get them back. I mean, our National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has developed a tool called Arachnid that is designed just for that purpose.
To find the
images and try to get them. Try to get them back. When I say try, you can't guarantee, but you know that's an issue that they're addressing because of this fact, right?
Okay. So we know the stakes. Unfortunately, there are children who have taken their lives, young people have taken their lives, and of course they meet these people online, think they're somebody else, may go on and meet them, and then horrible things can happen.
Sure.
We're hearing from a number of questions. This is a hot topic, obviously, among parents. So let me ask about Anna. Number one, Anna's question or comment, as far as I know, and you'll be able to clarify this because Detective Constable Janelle Blackadar is very technically savvy. Certain things are blocked off the IP address, and my daughter's phone is monitored. So that frightens her. Is that right? Is there something to be concerned about there, blocked off? Is there anything in particular technologically?
Well, she might, I don't know exactly what she's referring to, but you can block certain sites from being able to be accessible from a device within your home.
Okay.
And that could be done at the computer level and maybe done at the router level. So yes, they can do that.
So Philip writes, this is an interesting broadcast. Philip, thank you, and we're glad to have you watching on Facebook and YouTube, which strikes me as highly ironic because in this case that we're talking about in Australia, these were the kinds of very popular social media sites that the actual alleged perpetrator was using to reach people. As we reach you, this is how easy it is for somebody who has, you know, nefarious intentions to reach kids. But Philip writes about time to get some safety concerns answered, especially over the March break, with, of course, children are going to be online. They're going to be at home. So one of the things that we talked about, so thank you for that, Philip. Let's go to some of those most important things for parents to remember. We've already highlighted one, which is don't let your children be online alone. Don't let them be online in the bathroom and alone in their bedroom. What else are the main things that parents should keep in mind?
Find out what technology that they're using and know what their limits are, whether it be something like Kik or Snapchat, any application that the child is using that allows video or images to be taken is the concern, right?
Okay. Because they're asked to get naked or perform a sex act or something of that nature. So this is what you do not want to have happen.
Right, and it can start innocuous, you know, like take a picture of you or just to take a selfie, and it can develop from there as they, you know, potentially have an online relationship. So any application that's like that, you have to know what your child has, and you have to make sure that they understand how to use it, and they know how to report when something makes them feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
Right?
So that's the communication piece, which
That's
is so
right.
key. Keeping that, as difficult it is with teenagers who want to get more and more private and be mature, you have to keep those channels of communication open with your kids.
Yeah, I mean, trust and privacy is earned. Like, when I was younger, it was a big thing about getting a driver's license, right? And everyone thought you got a driver's license, right? And the saying was, it's a privilege, not a right. And phones, they're the ultimate privilege. I mean, we didn't grow up with phones, and maybe technology didn't exist back then. It would be weird to walk around with a big phone, but
privilege.
But they need to understand with that phone comes dangers, and it's unfortunate because kids should just be able to go on the internet and be left alone. You know what I mean? And so it's our jobs as parents, and it's my job as a police officer, to try to do what we can to protect those kids.
So you mentioned Snapchat. Now, that's one of my nephew's favorites. So that picture disappears. Does that pose unique challenges for you as an investigator, or in terms of how it might be used for bad intentions? Tell me about Snapchat in particular.
Well, I mean, it poses issues for us because we lose that evidence.
Right.
So it's a different sort of type of investigation that occurs. But the bad guy doesn't necessarily lose that evidence. There's ways that they can capture those images. They don't just disappear necessarily off of their devices, depending on what they're using to retain them. And often you'll see the bouncing back between applications because people will know how to use them and how to gain their trust. So.
Okay, so that's a particular challenge. Justin Cloutier comments, don't give your child a tablet. Put a desktop in the living room, or put a lock on the laptop. So in terms of advice to parents, what do you think about? They do want to have their mobile device, though,
They
don't
do.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's things you can do. You can disable the camera on the device. Unfortunately, technology keeps just getting better, so most devices have cameras and so forth, but you can disable them. But again, it's about talking and making sure that they understand the boundaries and what's happening. I mean, we forget, like, as parents, if a stranger came to our front door and knocked on the door and said, hey, do you mind if I just go up to your kid's bedroom and just talk with your kid for a minute?
Yeah, just
like,
behind
would you let
doors.
them in? No. But every day, strangers get into people's houses, into the kids' bedrooms, talking to their kids, and parents don't realize it.
No.
And that's something that we have to address.
Janae Hopper writes, you can't monitor a teen if they have free range with a cell phone. All you can hope is that they make the right decisions based on the conversations that you're suggesting.
Right.
We're getting some wonderful comments and questions, and I'll get to more of them. Thanks for joining us on this Facebook Live with Detective Constable Janelle Blackadar from the Toronto Child Exploitation Section. I want to just pause for a moment, because when we got thinking about this in relation to the Justin Bieber impersonator case, what we were talking about earlier on CBC News Network, I thought it would be a rarity that someone would impersonate a celebrity, because it makes sense. So many Justin Bieber wants to talk to me. I'm going to do whatever Justin Bieber says. In this particular case, Toronto actually had a very similar case just a couple of years ago.
We did.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We didn't have as many victims, but it was a referral. There were some victims in the United States, and he pretended to be Justin Bieber. I don't know how that worked, because it was a little different. I did the investigation along with Bill McGarry, and he in fact contacted me as a 13-year-old and engaged in alluring related offenses, and he was arrested. So
there was an 11-year-old girl. He was sent to prison for a few years. She performed sex acts on a webcam, thinking it was again for Justin Bieber. So it's not rare that they would use not just, of course, him, but other celebrities popular with young kids. But what's interesting is, and why this is such a particularly important conversation, is because in your work, your specialty is you go online and either pretend to be a child, hoping to attract the attention of somebody who might try to lure you, or you go online as the impersonator, somebody who's trying to find someone to exploit. Just tell a little bit about, without revealing obviously your investigative tactics, how does your work, what do you do?
Well, it sort of depends. We have a proactive side and a reactive side. So there's times where there's, on the adult spectrum of thing, there are predicated areas where we go, where we find people that are sexually...
Like chat sites?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and people that have a sexual interest in children frequent, and that's the room that we kind of hang out in.
So
and
you
we'll
would
do our
pretend to be a
investigations there.
minor and then attract their attention. And
in that regard, it would be more pure adult related. In other regards, we could go online as a child and wait for somebody, again, to approach us, and we'll do the investigation. If it's a reactive one, where a child has been lured, we'll define it differently. We'll take different actions. It all depends on what the circumstances are.
So interesting. And another thing that related to this, to help you understand at home how somebody might operate, I was wondering how sophisticated it is to say, I know I'm Justin Bieber, and then to pose on that online. And you were mentioning, and we should probably again, that it's pretty easy to do that. It's not necessarily a sophisticated approach, is it? How would you masquerade as some celebrity?
Well, again, no one takes your driver's license when you create a profile on Facebook or wherever it is. And I think a lot of it is, you can create your profile, and when kids search for Justin Bieber or something like that, those options will pop up. And it's actually the kids that are at it, like connecting to that site and then thinking that it's Justin Bieber. And then he just sits there and
he's just waiting for it.
Plethora of kids to be able to exploit. So, I mean, it's not, again, a slightly different subject is vigilantes. We do have a lot of them who go online and pose as
the creep catchers. We're talking about those in the news quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating because it's, I know they're trying to do good, some of them maybe not when they're trying to make money off of it, but...
well, also they've got names wrong, and it's been, people have identified as perpetrators who have not been, and that's been a pretty difficult situation.
They don't turn over the evidence, we can't use it. If it's not good, we can't use it. And really, a lot of the times, they're just educating the bad guys, which makes our job more difficult. So it's not as easy as just going online, right? We go through a lot of training and we learn how to do it right.
Yes. So again, lots of wonderful comments here on our Facebook Live, on YouTube and on Facebook, and let's share a couple of them. From Adam, well, this is not a question. Well, there's a couple of questions. Well, let me get you Stephen's comment first. Please remove data from their, or parents rather, remove data from their cell phones. Why would you want your kids on Snapchat anyway? Computers in the house, stay in common areas until they are 18. Further, a lot of parents, it's a hard thing to do, but the intention is clearly there from those of you who are watching today. Adam wonders, what is the dark web? What is the dark web?
Well, your regular Google is what we call the regular web. That's what so the dark web is basically, it's the same thing. It just requires a different connection point that you have to do something extra to, and it works pretty much the same way, but not exactly. It's not the Googles of the world, if you know what I mean.
And so it's through that. Is that the portal? Is that people know, and that's where you find these chats? That's where you can find these access points on the dark web?
We can find these points on just the regular web. I mean, we don't have. I mean, trust me, the dark web is horrid, and there's lots of awful things there. But there's still lots of awful things that are accessible in mainstream internet.
www. And it can take you there. You're absolutely right. As you learn, when you type in something that leads you to places that you never would imagine that would lead you, if you're looking for that, you can find it. Andrew watching on YouTube, Andrew, what about the apps that report your position to other users? Would that not be hypercritical to you? Apps that are useful to you. Does that help you pinpoint or locate the perpetrator if you have those kind of apps in use?
Yeah, it can. I mean, certainly if we're trying to track somebody or we're trying to find, the identity of someone, of course that would be advantageous for us, but it's not something that we would use every day, I don't think.
David Buck comments, we had a desktop computer only. Again, this seems to be a bit of a key point. Parents thinking about that. Forget about the handheld devices. We made a kids account login, and we set our program to block out content that was not appropriate, and we check the history frequently. Checking the history is an important step for parents to take too.
Absolutely.
Can kids hide that though? Is there any way? They can they?
There's in private browsing. I mean, you know, if you're going to check your kids' devices, the one thing I would say is be spontaneous about it. Because if your kid comes home every day and you hand your phone to your mom and then she looks at things, all the child did probably was just delete everything that they were supposed to delete during the day. Here's my phone, and then resume.
Surprise checks.
Exactly.
When they least expect it. Deb McKay commenting, our children, who are 7 and 14, don't have their own devices. We frequently put the, everything has one, we get the, you know, I should have my reading glasses on for some of these, shouldn't I? Oh, to have a tablet myself. We frequently get the but everyone has one argument, but our job is to raise healthy children, not provide all the toys. So that speaks to the pressure that parents are under to make sure their kids have what so many other kids have, doesn't it? But you may want to resist that pressure if you can, as long as possible.
Yeah, again, you know, it's hard. It's peer pressure. It's acceptable. That's how kids communicate. So you have to balance that, and I think you can, you know. And I think one of the early comments was that data was turned off, and I think, you know, we started giving our kids phones because we wanted to be able to get a hold of them, and so texting, right? Just simple SMS texting is all the kid needs, right?
Right.
And so you can have a phone that doesn't have all those apps, or give them something that's safe, some sort of platform where they can communicate with their friends, but you're not going to be taking selfies, you're not going to be doing videos, and it's one application that the parent understands and can monitor.
Okay. Sadger, watching on YouTube, hello to you. He'd like to know what more you can tell us about how you do your work. So obviously you can't give us the deep, dark investigative details, but how does somebody do the job that you do, which is essentially to go online, pose as something, and then track down the bad guys? How do you work?
Well, we get training. We learn the law, basically, and we have the technology, and it's just about experience and knowledge.
Right.
And we just do our investigations, and that's just our job to do it. So
how many in your unit?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's 17 of us.
So has that you've been on the job for 10 years. Has this grown as this threat has grown? The number of people with specialized training and in your unit?
Our unit's always been fairly large. I think we've gotten, you know, a little bit larger. I mean, we could double our unit and we'd still be busy every day.
Really? Just because of the number of threats?
Yeah.
What has been the greatest change in threats or in frequency, or just the greatest change in general since you started this particular kind of policing?
It's just technology. I mean, as technology, you know, progresses, the unfortunate part is people aren't building in the protection of children into that technology. So, you know, we have predators who look at child pornography and they have encryption. So that's an issue for us. You know, you have all these apps that people are developing, but then you can't trace the mobile connection, or you can't trace who's in the group chat, and they're not building in the technology that is required to keep kids safe. You know, it should be just so easy whenever you use an app to just, if something goes wrong, to be able to press a button, capture things, and report something. And that's the biggest change, I think.
So the technology. So just again, to go back and answer that question, when you have the investigation and the training and everything, but basically you're working in an office, we got our computers behind it, you're sitting in your office on your computer, and you are, is trolling an inappropriate verb, or is that right? Are you you're out there looking?
I don't troll.
Okay, sorry. No, that's
yeah,
I don't want to ever give the wrong impression, but you're out there looking. You're looking for.
I'm just there.
You're
I'm
there.
just present. I'm not looking for anything.
You have a presence on the internet.
I'm just there.
Okay.
Yeah, just like any other kid is there. They're just going to an app because they want to connect with somebody, just to do it because that's what they want to do, and that's no different than what I would do. And that's what happens is they're there, and then a predator is also there, and that's when the conversation starts.
So you could form a relationship with them as you are posing a child, and then go from there, and then
Yep.
the investigation proceeds. Penny's wondering about whether spyware is helpful to track a kid's online activity. Espionage.
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean, again,
For parents to use?
Sure. Yeah, you can get. We won't call it spyware. We'll call it safetyware.
Okay.
And you can get that. You can install programs on phones and tablets, and some of them will take a snapshot, every couple seconds and send it to you. Some of them will pick up on keywords, so swearing or sexual terms, and you can tailor some of those programs to pick up on certain things. And then when those words are used, it'll alert you. So if your child starts to engage or is being, engaging in a sexual chat with somebody, that it will let you know. And
Where do you get that?
well, there's lots of companies that sell it.
Sell it, okay.
Just Google
so
it.
this
You'll
similar
find
to
it.
that, Patrick wants to know, is it legal to track my child using a mobile device or GPS tracker?
Sure.
Okay. So it's similar to spyware, but whatever.
Well, you're just tracking the phone that you
Right.
gave your child, right?
Right.
So it's,
But that's for beyond. That's if they're moving, right? If that's not what they're saying. That's if they're on the phone. That's their geography, right? If you're
Right.
concerned about if they're meeting anybody,
Yeah.
that you want to know where that
Sure.
contact might be. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that do you advise that, or?
I mean, it's not a bad idea. Here I am. I'm the most protective parent, but our kids are. We have to keep them safe. So, intrusive as it is, if I know where if you want to install GPS on your kid's phone just because it makes them safer, I don't see the problem with telling your kid. Your GPS is enabled. I know where you are going to connect to the Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to be a secret. It doesn't even have to be a secret about the privacy software. You can even tell your child, I'm installing this to protect you. So if you start talking and someone says something sexual to you, I'm going to find out about it. You don't have to keep it from your child.
Okay. Let me just, as you take a sip, I'll
Sorry.
just reintroduce you, Detective Constable Janelle Blackadar with the Toronto Police Service, in particular the Child Exploitation Section. I'm getting some wonderful comments and also questions from you as you watch on Facebook and YouTube. And my name is Heather Hiscox. I'm the host of Morning Live on CBC News Network. And Constable Blackadar and I were talking earlier today on our morning program, and really thought there was enough interest on the part of parents to extend the conversation, and obviously from the number of people responding, for parents, this is a real concern. This is a threat that you can't really get a handle on. As you said, you wouldn't let people into the front door if they were going to cause your child harm.
Right.
But this is out there, and it's hard for parents to get a handle on it and do something to protect their children.
Yeah, because there's so much technology, right? I mean, almost every, well, I'm not saying almost every child, but there's a lot of kids that have phones and tablets and laptops. And so, yeah, it's a very prevalent thing for us. I mean, even, we're talking about predators, but even between themselves, when you get into them exchanging photos, I mean, we have that daily where girlfriend, boyfriend take some pictures, send them off, they break up, then one of them sends it to their friends, and then next, you got 10 kids all with what is technically child pornography on their phone. Then we got to deal with.
Well, we're learning that as a result of the
phones.
Rehtaeh Parsons case out of Nova Scotia. That's
Yeah.
really changed the rules around the distribution of child pornography, and so people do not realize, but that's exactly what they're engaging in based on the new laws as written. Andrew writes to us, the biggest problem I see with these apps is the ability for the user to hide their identity. There is no transparency. Anyone can pretend to be someone else.
Sure. Yep.
That's so agreed upon. The role of the provider in all of this. Do they help you? Do they not? There's often issues of, they want to protect it's so important to keep confidentiality of the client base.
Yeah, I mean, I get, the reality is that they built the app or they built the technology because they want to make money. So I understand that they have an enterprise and that's what they're moving forward to. What I would like is them to, on the forefront, is to think about how can we protect our users? What's the best way we can protect our kids? We do work with a lot of apps and technology companies, and for the most part, they are helpful. They do try to protect kids. I certainly think that there's a lot more that we can do, But for the most part, they do want to help us. Yeah.
Jacqueline wondering whether there are any Canadian plans to implement internet meeting safe zones monitored by police. So those are for online purchases. So we've heard that in connection with Craigslist or eBay or Kijiji. In her view, worse than Snapchat, because that's an opportunity. But we've heard about those in some cities implementing those, Toronto as well, where you can go and meet the person if you're buying something online, and in fact, it's in a public place. So have you heard about those at all?
I haven't, but okay.
So they're setting them up. There's a real, it's quite interesting, and I don't remember all of the details off by heart, but there was certainly a push. It was in the city of Toronto, and I'm sure other cities are doing the same. So because of, for example, the case that we had, the man who bought the car and he ended up, it was trying to sell his car and he ended up being killed. We've had terrible situations of online commercial dealings that have led to rapes or have led to meetings that have led to crimes. So there are these safe zones where you go and meet somebody, and that's where you do your business transaction. And indeed, they're trying to expand those further in the city of Toronto, and I'm sure elsewhere. It's a smart thing to do, but I'm not sure how it would relate.
I don't
in this
know how
context.
it would relate in ours unless, because there's really no way. I mean, you'd really have to go to lengths to be able to prove that that is actually what is being, even if you video chatted with somebody.
Right.
Like a one-on-one video chat. Okay, yeah, I could probably tell if that was fake, but you know, you get into a chat room with 50 people, if you're going to monitor all 50 of them to see if they're not repeating the same movement over and over again to make sure they're real. So you can manipulate things with computers. So I just don't know if that would work.
All right, but in the context of selling and buying, it has been proven to be effective. Patrick wonders about you and your work and the fact that you deal and see such terrible images, and I can't even begin to imagine the numbers of things that you've seen and the children at the young ages you have seen. So what toll does it take on you and your life and your personal relations?
I don't know.
It's a great question,
It's a
Patrick.
good question, yeah. You know, I get asked that a lot, you know, by friends and family, and the reality is that there are types of jobs that have to be done. Paramedics do a job, firefighters do a job, you know, doctors do a job, nurses do a job. And I can tell you I wouldn't be a good firefighter because I'm scared of heights. And, you know, paramedics have to deal with, you know, trauma and things like that. So my job, I'm built to do my job. And I think everybody that's in my line of work has chosen to do that because they can handle it and because it's something that they can do and do well.
Well, you know you're doing important work. That's also, I mean, the satisfaction of busting one of these predators is probably pretty tremendous.
Excellent. When we rescue a kid, you know, we high five, like we get, super excited. It doesn't matter where the kid is. It doesn't matter if they're local or across the world. And we're all the same way. Like it's the best thing. Yeah.
To save one. Brandon is asking something similar. On average, how many times a week or a day, whatever the number is or the figure is, do you catch these perpetrators, and what percentage of them are ever prosecuted? That's maybe a part of the thing too.
That's a tough question. I mean, our office, we do somewhere around 50 and 60 offenders a year, and
has that changed, or is that pretty?
No, it's pretty
constant?
standard. I mean, and we do work a lot. What people don't realize is it's not just. I mean, I could sit online and catch 10 guys a day.
Really?
If I had that time. What people don't realize is that we have to do forensics examinations of computers and hard drives, and as technology builds, those devices, the capacity for storage gets bigger, which makes it harder and longer for us to do.
Yeah, to establish the standard of proof that you'd need to take a case to trial is probably, gathering that evidence.
There's a lot that goes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you can spend. I could do a case in a day, but spend a month doing disclosure and categorizing, say, images. So I mean, it's case specific, of course, but so we can only move as fast as we're allowed with our abilities. So
once you do identify a suspect and you do begin to build that case, do they all go to trial? And once they're there, does it usually fall to conviction on balance?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, our investigations are pretty specific. There's not a lot of, was it you or not? So yeah, once we identify somebody, you know, there's people that we might identify as suspects, but we might concentrate on one based on something that is, you know, came to light, so to speak. So when we go and investigate somebody, we do a search warrant, we bring them before the court, and I would like to say that I think we've got a pretty good batting average for being, you know, convicting them and going forward. Yeah.
Nicole would like to know: are you finding Facebook is becoming more dangerous with its privacy and general settings?
Well, I don't know if it's become more dangerous. You know, Facebook, I think, has taken certain steps to get a little bit better in searching for children online and so forth. I mean, it's a social networking site, so it's, you know, there's only so much that they can do to prevent people from contacting other people, but
not particularly.
Yeah.
Of all of the apps, is there one that you think is the most risky?
Well, I think they're all very, you know, risky depending on, you know, what it is that they're doing. So, I mean, there's different vulnerabilities that can be used in a lot of different apps. So, you know, I don't want to focus on those because I don't want the bad guy to hear me. But so you have to, you know, you just have to be aware of what is there.
Whatever's popular at the time. We're getting close to concluding, so I want to wrap up with your final comment, and then I'll get a final comment from you, from Aaron, saying the sad thing is with some school boards, they give students iPads to use and bring home. I find it harder to monitor our child's activity on the device, and it is impossible to do so during breaks at school. So they want the kids to have all the tools of technology, obviously, to enhance their learning, but there may be some inherent risks in that. I wonder if they think about that adequately in the school boards.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess that, you know, that's a meeting that could be had with the school board, with the parents, and to find out. I mean, just because you have an iPad doesn't mean that they've installed all the chatting programs, right? So I think that's the first step, is to find out what's installed, like what is at risk here, or is it just something that you can access Google and go about your business for education, right? So that would be the first thing, and then address it with the school board if there's concerns, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron, thank you. Thank you to you as you've watched on YouTube and Facebook for all of those very insightful comments. Obviously, very concerned parents watching, and thank you. Hopefully, we provided some information to you. But again, thank you for those comments and for the questions. Just as we go, maybe a parting word to the parents. Again, we keep coming back to the fact here it is March break, maybe enhanced time in front of the computer. What's your number one tip for parents to keep their children safe?
Again, communication is going to be the big thing, and understanding the technology. Even if the parents leave and go to work for the day, right? You can turn your internet off at home. You don't have to let your kids be on the internet. You know, they can do their homework or go and play in the street, perhaps.
Play, what a concept.
What a concept. Go meet in person with another child. So there's things that they can do. And this week is a concern, is because there will be more kids that are home that are not, that are generally in school, and bad people will know about it, and there will be a lot of activities. So talk to your kids, make sure that they understand what the rules are, what the applications are that they have, if something happens, what they do, how to report it. You know, don't get rid of the evidence. Talk to their parents.
And talk to the parents.
Yeah, call the police.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I said, you do important work, and becoming ever more so. Detective Constable Janelle Blackadar with the Toronto Police Service, thank you for being my guest on CBC News Network earlier and for this Facebook Live. Enjoy your March break. Keep it safe. If you're and your family about to start that week of holiday, have a good weekend otherwise, and I'll see you Monday for Morning Live on CBC News Network. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks.